your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stevenson Manners and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
Good evening. I'm Stevenson Manners, host of Your Voice with the NRP. And there is Ellie Matt, who recently celebrated a birthday, going away in the background. Now it's time for Your Voice. It is Monday, January 26th, the final Monday in the first month of 2026. With us tonight, for the second time in January, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Deputy Leader of the NRP. She is giving us a double bubble. Good evening, Pat. Nice to have you once again.
Good evening, Steve. It is always good to be here. And I'm just here it's not by choice necessarily. Circumstances. But, deputy is essential.
Essential, always.
So, the leader, she's back. And I am to report that she's back. But let me get to the greetings first. And I'll get to her afterwards so I can give a proper welcome. So we need to start because we can't ever forget our top fans. So we're going to start with Jamdong and Montserrat. So those are our two top fans, and so we are sending greetings to those two gentlemen. We encourage you to keep encouraging us. And then, of course, in the USA, that they've been experiencing quite a bit of cold there. I don't envy them at all. And so I want to extend some warm greetings to people like Camilla, Annette, Hazel, Kelvin, Keith, Felix, my cousin Ash, my sister-in-law, Leonie, and her double bubble friend, Twilla. And of course, I have my sister right there in the US as well, and my favorite niece. Then there's Giselle, our listening audience. We have people like Giselle and Loretta Clark Queely. Adele, Adele from Overbad. And then, of course, we have Sharon. She's from Brown Hill, and she's somewhere in the Boston area. And we have Deli, and Deli Canes. And then we have Violina, and then we have the Rev. And those, I'm going to cut it right there because you have so many supporters in the USA. You can't name all of them, but some people are really, sometimes always come to the fore. And then in the USVI, I would like to extend some greetings to Julie and Elroy. These are special people. And Uncle Sidney and his wife, Carol, my cousin Tracy, Hugh over there in St. Croix, Spliff, Bumpy, Dillis, and all the others. And of course in the UK, I recently found out, and I think I would have said that the last time, that Miller is my cousin. So Cousin Miller, good evening. Or good morning. I'm sorry, good morning, and thanks for being with us, as well as all the other persons in the UK who are logged in at this point in time. And of course, closer home, we're always leaving home for last, isn't it? Anyway, closer home, we have Cousin Cynric Denson Kitts and my colleague, and I already acknowledged Jamdong. And then here in Nevis, there's a special family that I usually don't send greetings to, and I really should. They don't necessarily care to be in the limelight, but these people have been so supportive. I cannot but extend, warmest greetings to them. And that is a family over there in Church Ground, the Farrell's family. Mr. Farrell is a very, very, very ardent supporter and listener to this program. And Mr. Farrell, it is always a pleasure to have you and Rose in our company, and I like to visit them because I never go away empty-handed.
Generous people.
Of course they are, you're to a fault. I mean, and it goes all the way down to the grandchildren, not just the children, because all like Lynette, you can't drop something, you say, okay, well, I need to get, and before you say get, she's getting it. And so these are people who are so supportive because they believe in the work that we do in the NRP. They believe strongly in it, and for that we are eternally grateful. And of course, I have the executive members of my constituency group, and I have the best chairman ever, and I always have to extend, my sincerest gratitude for the support that I get from these people. And before I forget, remember we had the Santa thing, and we did some questions before. We had the Santa whistle stop. Rubilet, if you're hearing me, please reach out to me. I still have that food hamper you need to reach out to me. You may not be in need of it, but if you can give me directions as to how to dispose of it, please let me know. I need instructions because it is yours, because you want it fair and square. But I don't want it to stay in my car indefinitely. I need to get it to someone who can appreciate it, because I know you probably don't really need the food, but give me the instructions. I'm waiting on you. 765-9376. Please reach out so that I can dispose of that as soon as possible. And I started off by saying that the leader is back. And she's not just back, she's back with a bang. And I just want, because not everyone has the luxury, or not everyone has availed themselves of the access to Facebook. And so for those individuals who might not have seen the post that she made, I would just like to share it with all of us, because it was a good post. It was good to have her back, and all of the congratulatory messages, and the welcome back messages and the get well messages, that I'm sure that, she really appreciated them. And so she has reached out. And let me just read in its entirety what she would have posted on Facebook. She says, I am home. To God be the glory, great things he has done. She's a Christian, eh? My dear Nivisions and residents, back in December, I left home to attend to personal matters as I had to seek medical attention that is not available here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Today, I give thanks to Almighty God for my recovery journey. Spending the Christmas holidays away from my constituents and the people of Nevis was not easy, but I trust you understand the circumstances. Please know that you have remained constantly on my mind, and I made every effort to stay connected during my absence. Nevis and the people of Nevis live deeply within my heart, and now that I am home, the work will continue. Work aimed at bringing meaningful change and a better future for us all. I am truly eager to reconnect and catch up with you. I extend heartfelt thanks to my deputy, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, for holding down the fort in my absence. I deeply appreciate you, Pat. Thank you as well to the party executive, caretakers, and the St. James constituency group for your dedication and commitment to our party's work throughout 2025 and during my time away. We have much more to do in 2026 and beyond. To my family, my supporters, and all who prayed, encouraged, and stood with me, thank you for your unwavering love and support. Always in service. Janice Daniel Hodge.
Yeah, I read that, and I read all the lovely comments today, including yours. Nobody said, you quoted from one of your favorite songs, nobody said the road is going to be easy. So we're very happy to have her back. I was driving in the vicinity of Ole Beach Hotel today, and out of the corner of my right eye, I saw her Jeep going by. And I said, wow, she's on the road. Well, I'm not sure she was driving, but her vehicle made its way past mine. So we're so happy to have her, and to let her know that the whole country is breathing a sigh of relief. The last time we were here, I mentioned to you that I was at a funeral, and as soon as it was over, a gentleman came up to me and he said, what about the party leader? Man, I'm praying night and day for she, and that's a sentiment you heard all around. So her presence, about 2 months or so, but we're glad to have you back. And let me tell you that, as Pat said, a deputy is essential. And Pat stepped up to the plate, and she did an awesome job holding things together and moving things forward. So I know you're an unassuming person, but you deserve a lot of credit for holding things together. And now we're moving forward for 2026. So, party leader, good to have you back. Long for you to be back behind the microphones.
Yes, I told you the last time when we spoke, I said to you that she was on her way home.
Mm-hmm.
She soon come.
Mm-hmm.
And so the soon come has now, materialized to, she is here. So yes, party leader, welcome back.
And nothing to do with the weather? You don't think she wanted to escape that? And by the way, in your opening remarks, you mentioned Twiller. And if I remember correctly, I can't remember if it was Saturday or last Thursday, Dr. Kelvin Daly, of course, Twila is his sister-in-law, and he said they were still here. You're telling me Twila went back up into that cold freeze?
No. Let me not say that she is there. I don't know of her whereabouts, physical whereabouts at this point in time.
Okay.
But the people who I know ordinarily would live there or reside there, those are the persons who, because I don't know the whereabouts of anybody on this list, as a matter of fact. My sister could very well be in St. Gates. So, yeah.
What? This might be Twila calling in. Let's see. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Patricia. Happy New Year.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
I'm listening, and I just wanted to say this. The strength of a leader is what happens when they're not around. When things don't fall apart, when everything continues on, that shows the strength of the leadership that person has put in place. So kudos to Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, and kudos to Dr. Patricia Bartlett for carrying on as smoothly and as seamlessly as if everything was in the right place at the right time, in perfect.
Thank
you, guys.
That's a perfect way to start. Our first caller there. And that is true. It happened seamlessly. And I know you're happy to slip into the second chair now that she's back.
Oh, yes.
Because that's what you are, a team player.
Yes.
And it was exemplified over the past 2 months. So, Dr. Daniel, rest easy. We will wait your return to Your Voice with the NRP. Now, Pat, you have listed 4 major topics to discuss tonight. Healthcare, population increase initiative as put forward by Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew, social security, and debt crisis and destiny. To make sure we give equal weighting to all of this, we're 10 minutes into the program, a 90-minute program. We'll allot 20 minutes to each one to make sure we get it all in tonight. We're not doing overtime.
Well, we definitely wouldn't do the overtime, but it may not necessarily flow like that because some issues may be a little better, explained a certain way. But I'll try to conform.
Yeah, well, even if you don't, we understand. It's just that we want to
set the rules, and I'll try to conform.
All right. Well, here we go.
Yes, and healthcare is back on my list of things to bring awareness to our people. And it's unfortunate that we have to keep talking about these issues. And I'm not about to touch, or not likely to touch on the status of the Alexandria Hospital tonight, because as we know, I wouldn't touch it, just like how the CCM NIA is not likely to touch the hospital this year.
No, you mean physically touch it?
Right, they're not likely to address that this year.
Because the Premier has his first press conference tomorrow, and he must address that.
He might talk about it, but at the end of 2026, they still would not have done anything on it.
Same as you said last year, right?
Well, it has been like that for
3
how many years?
3 years.
You,
Ditto.
You see.
All right, so go right ahead.
So I'm just going to pretend like we don't have a big issue with the Alexandria Hospital, because that has been talked about so many times, and the Premier seem not to be paying any mind to the fact that that is a project that ought to come to a conclusion soon, or soonest. So like I said, I'm going to leave that alone. And the reason why I wanted to address this is because when I read the message from party leader that she had an issue and she had to go off island, it was excruciating for me, because I'm saying in 2026 we should not still be dependent on outside sources for basic services such like healthcare. That is something that we had the wherewithal, that we could have addressed healthcare, that people should have been coming here to seek healthcare rather than for us to be going elsewhere to seek healthcare. And she spoke about being away for weeks, I mean, this is an issue that we need to address. And when NRP is in power, that ought to be one of the first things. We ought to give healthcare priority, especially for the people of Nevis. Because, after I said, no, she should not have had to do that. And so many people, and the thing is, she had, obviously, she had the means. What about those who don't have the means to move, Steve? And so these are things that I think we need to keep on the foreburner. We can't put them on the back burner at all. And so that is the reason why I included that as as a topic for us to discuss, whether it's 20 minutes or less or more.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So we need to ask them, and there are people out there who, when they listen to the press conferences, they get the impression that things in Nevis are okay. You keep hearing that the Premier would say things like, this is the best, the healthcare has ever been in Nevis. No, how healthcare could be the best? When I'm asking, what are the metrics? What is it that he is looking at to arrive at that conclusion? And when you make those statements, why not supply us with the data, the evidence? Because things ought to be evidence-based. We are 98% literate. It means that we're expecting a higher level of reporting, a higher level of accountability from our elected leaders, And so when he says things, off the cuff, like, healthcare is the best it's had been, I'm like, what are you looking at? Share the data with us. It is true, and I look at some data from the World Health Organization, WHO, and unfortunately the data that I managed to capture would have just been up to 2022. For some reason, we are slacking on data, even to feed data into the institutions that need them to advise us, to giving us, for giving us technical advice. We sometimes fall a little short, and I don't know what the issue is, but with Dr. Ju, we need to step up and we need to catch up. And so we asked, what is the actual state of affairs as it relates to healthcare in St. Kitts and Nevis? And I think while most of us would have accepted that it is a fact that non-communicable diseases are the ones that plague us most, we still not sure which direction we're going. When you say it is the best that healthcare has ever been, it would suggest to me that we have already gotten a good grip on addressing the non-communicable diseases that are plaguing us. Things like cardiovascular diseases. We're still hearing about people dying from strokes. Well, it happens and we understand that, but the trend ought to be, if things are the best, the trend ought to be that things are going down as it relates to the occurrences of these diseases that are afflicting us. So when we look at cardiovascular diseases, I looked at the data that the WHO had published from 1992, and I took them in 10-year gaps. From 1992, we had 162 persons dying from cardiovascular disease in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. In 2002, it went down a bit. In 2012, it went down a little bit. 2022, but it is still hovering close to where it was in 1992. So it means that we are not necessarily doing the work that is required to eliminate or we even reduce significantly the occurrences of cardiovascular diseases. You still hear frequently about people ended up in the hospital with strokes, or they just die suddenly and they claim that it is heart attack. So we need to do better about that if we're going to boast that healthcare is the best it has ever been. It means that the comparative data should lead us to that conclusion. It means when we look at the data, years gone by compared to this year and current years, it means that these data should be better. We should be getting better figures. We should have less people dying from these diseases. Then we look at the most alarming thing for me was what they call malignant neoplasms, which is really talking about cancers. That is really a fancy name, for saying that people have cancers of various, origins. And so in 1992, we had 39 persons dying from cancers, or that is on the death certificate. That's what I said. It was attributed to cancer or complications related to or arising from cancer. And in 2002, it rose. 2012, it rose. So it gone from 39, and so in 2022, it was up to 94. from 39 in 1992 and gradually increasing up to 94 in 2022. Now we are in 2026 now, and so we have a gap. And we know that people have been dying frequently around here, and every time you ask, most of the times you ask, you're hearing that is somebody had cancer. Some young person, exited because they had cancer. The same thing could be said of diabetes. We had numbers as low as 10, and I didn't capture any data for 1992, but in 2002, we had 10 persons dying from diabetes and complications related to, and in 2022, we had 55. So you're talking about 5 times what we had in 2002 that we had in 2022, 20 years later. Overall, these non-communicable disease counted for 251 deaths in 1992. Fast forward to 2022, it was 368 persons dying from non-communicable diseases, which include, like I said, your cardiovascular diseases, your malignant or cancers, and diabetes, because we just looked at those 3 top, because those are the top causes of death in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. When we look at the cause as it relates to the distribution between men and women, we had mainly breast cancers in women and mainly prostate cancers in men. And like I said, there has seemed to have been an explosion in the number of cases compared to 10, 20 years ago. And so we have to start asking, and this does not reflect that healthcare is at its best. And I think I've made that point and it bears repeating. This does not reflect that healthcare is at its best. It seems to suggest that it is worsening if you're going to compare the data. So I want the Premier to recognize in his folly, recognize that there is folly in him keep making these statements that the data does not support. It means that you're tone deaf. It means that if you know the data and you're not sharing it, it is a bad situation. And if you don't know the data, you ought to advise, get someone to advise you of what the status is before you speak, because it doesn't reflect well on the organization, because you can't fix something that you don't have any idea exists. And if there's a problem and you keep saying that there isn't a problem, it is not likely that you'll address it in a timely manner. And so we need for him to recognize that healthcare is not at its best, and we need to step up and we need to do better in terms of healthcare delivery and the outcomes for our people. Our people ought not to be in 2026 be traveling overseas for things that they could get done here. It's time for us to, and I keep saying over and over, we need to invest in an epidemiologist. We need to study the data and need to be advised by professionals as to what we should best spend our monies, or right now the resources are limited. And so you must prioritize, and at the end of the day we should get better outcomes for our people. I made a call and I asked someone in the profession about the status as it relates to an oncologist. That is someone who studies cancers, who treats cancers. That is a doctor that dedicates practice to looking after cancer patients. So if you were to get a diagnosis, God forbid, that you have cancer, then they'll recommend that you get in touch right away with an oncologist who is going to then chart the way forward as to giving you what the options are as it relates to your treatment regime and things like that. So I asked the question about how many oncologists we have on Nevis, and I understand that we don't have any. Now, I understand St. Kitts had 2 oncologists. One was a Cuban, and I don't know if since the latest pressure from the U.S., the uproar related to us using Cuban expertise, if that one is still with us, or, but when I asked the question, I understand we had 2 in St. Kitts, 1 Cuban and 1 local. Now, if it is that we are treating 94 cases in 2022, and I suspect that it is higher in 2026, it's just a suspicion because the data is not there. Are we suggesting that all 94 plus, or let's say 100, if we're looking at the trajectory and where it's going and the likelihood that the cases are increasing, one doctor should be overseeing the care of 100 plus patients in St. Kitts and Nevis. I don't think that that is a tenable situation to be in. I don't think it is fair to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, not when you're boasting that you have advisors for this and advisors for that. Because the last time I checked, these advisors, particularly at the federal level, these advisors were making more money than the doctors. And so we need to make those kind of rational decisions that reflect that we really care about the people who we are serving, the people who elected us to serve their best interests. It is not good enough for us to always be seeing our people on social media with GoFundMe and trying to go overseas, and a lot of time before they even amass enough, or collect enough monies to pay the airfare and the lodging and all that is related to overseas care, that the most of our people succumb to their conditions right here, suffering in the process, and it is heart-wrenching to see that happen. And I think that that is something that ought to be addressed, and ought to be addressed speedily. We should not be pulling teeth to get the best health care that is available for all people. It is basic. It is basic human right. We have a right to these things. If you realize that the more deaths in the Federation related to cancers and they're increasing, that's a no-brainer. Get an oncologist. Nevis needs an oncologist, somebody who could take care of our people at home. And so I'm going to leave it right there. Like I said, I probably would not use the entire 20 minutes on it, but I just thought that I should bring that up again and make us aware of the fact that we should not be settling.
Well, let's take that caller. Good evening, caller.
And good evening, Steve, and good evening, Dr. Bartley. This is Hensley Daniel.
Good evening.
One by way of information to say that when I left, I was the Minister of Health in Nevis between 2006 and 2013. Two things Dr. Bartley done for the rest of the community. When I left, we had an oncologist in Nevis by the name of Dr. Errol Habdi, and we had an oncology nurse, Mrs. Liebert. She's the wife of, she subsequently passed Pastor Stephen Liebert. Okay, that we did to ensure that we treat people with cancer. The other thing in relation to cancer is that when we left, there were, in Nevis, there were 21 new cases per year. 21 new cases. And for the Federation, the data then showed 87 new cases in St. Kitts and Nevis per year. I don't know what the numbers are at the moment. And as you say, there is always the difficulty in getting the current data. And we had moved at the Ministry of Health in Nevis to establish a cancer registry so that we can do some, in the end, do some tracer studies and so on. And then I had begun some discussions with the NIH, the National Institute of Health in the United States, with a view toward working through the University of the West Indies to conduct some research on cancer in Nevis, because in a population of 13,000 and you have 21 new cases per year, that must be some form of a crisis in such a small population. So we began the discussion. I remember meeting with Dr. John Ruffin, who was in charge of health disparities unit at the NIH, to put us name us as one of the countries with health disparities. And so the discussion began as to how we could lay out the program. But of course, since we left government, that process has not continued. And then in relation to the non-communicable diseases, I was at the CARICOM Health Summit with the CARICOM leaders in Trinidad in 2007. And, we had spent a lot of money on contagious diseases like AIDS and so on. And then when it was recognized that each Caribbean country was spending something between 2 and 3% of its GDP on non-communicable disease. So we had to reverse. That is why you had the developed programs with, I think, CARICOM Health Day, September 30, with a view towards promoting more healthy living and with a view towards developing prevention measures and so on. Again, I don't know the extent to which those efforts have continued, but I just like to let the people know that that is what we had done while in the government. So these things were not, we had put those things in place because we were attempting to deal with the crisis at hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that intervention. And that is the thing, Steve, some people don't understand that government is continuous. Mm-hmm. And you just can't discard a program just because NRP started it. You must look at what it brought to the community. You must look for the value in it. And that is one of the saddest things that I've seen as it relates to the expressions of governance of this particular government that is in place, or this administration that is in place in Nevis. The health of the people seem not to be sometimes a priority. And it's always about political brinksmanship, because I think similar situation would have played out as it related to the efforts that were made for NRP to bring dialysis for the relief of the kidney or the renal patients at the time when they were there, and it was something that was not continued, and we've seen our people suffer because of that. We have seen within recent times that some of people have succumbed to the end-stage renal situation that they were in, and so these are things that points to regression, not to progression. And so it means that we are going backwards, Mr. Premier, we're not going forward. And so that is regrettable, and it is reversible, It is reversible, because the policies really that the NIA adopt, those are the policies that ultimately going to decide the quality of life of the people of Nevis. If we have a government that cares nothing about the quality of life of the people of Nevis, that is what is going to be reflected just where we are today, in that we have a regression. The things that were there that we should have built on, those things were just, the building blocks were taken down, and today you have nothing really to give us any measure of relief as it relates to our healthcare system, and it is worsening, and it's about time people understood that going next election, let us not be fooled with foolishness, and let us not get consumed with foolish rhetoric, because the last election, I'm like, how could these people win an election or even come close with the nonsense that they had on their platform? I can't tell you one issue that they brought to the people that would have said or swayed anybody, anything persuasive, any kind of persuasive argument as it related to any of the issues that we were facing. Not on the economy, they didn't make a case on the economy. All they said, at least as it related to the federal government, was, send us to Bastille. Just send us to Bastille, we'll bring you for your share. No plan, and those kind of things. And then for the local elections, it was another set of nonsense about who going to vote for them and who's skirt, mascara, and all foolishness that when they take a mic and jumping into hell and all kind of foolishness that had no relevance whatsoever to improving the life of, or the livelihood of the people of Nevis. And so now we are suffering the consequences of that, as people normally would say, and it is true, it is being borne out right here that elections have consequences. So I bring to us the facts so that when we think about these things and we reflect, it's like, which government you really think would have your best interests at heart? NRP, who saw that there was an increase, a crisis, because the ex-minister is now, the former minister is now saying that they recognize that as a crisis. And he was only talking about the number of people who were being added to the list every year. So if you have an increase of 21 cases, but now we're doing with the actual deaths, the information I provided, so we're talking about the final outcomes, because those persons, once they got the intervention, the medical interventions that were appropriate at that time, and maybe they would have lived much longer, and maybe that's why we had such smaller numbers of deaths. Because in 2012, which is would have been during the period of time that the former minister made reference to. The cases were just in the 60s, were just 62. And now, 10 years after that, in 2022 is up to 94, and those we're talking about actual deaths mean that the outcomes have not been good. So if it is that you're adding 21 new cases every year, but you're going to have 94 people dying, you see where we're going. And then you hear that Dr. Joe is going to now start to propose an initiative to increase the birth rate. But then again, you have to study the data. What is the data saying, you know? And that is, I want to just jump over to that, if you could segue into that right away, in that Dr. Ju was proposing, and I don't know, I have not seen the elements of the proposal. We don't know yet exactly what he's about to propose to his cabinet, let alone to bring it to the national level in Parliament. But he recognizes that we have a problem with population dynamics, you know. All of our people are getting older. Our population is getting older, and we don't have what people generally talk about, the replacement rate, meaning for every person, you know, that goes out, you need to have X amount of persons to replace them. And so I looked at what is going on, or what has been going on from 2017, though, because I kind of like to cover the period of time that this current NIA has been seated, because I don't want to give them the blame for what would have preceded them, but in their current circumstances, they ought to be responsible for their term of service. And so I kind of most of the times pivot to including or starting my data analysis in 2017, unless otherwise, you know, indicated. So in Nevis, we seem to have had a steady birth rate, in that we've been seeing from 2017, 98 new births. And up to 2023, we were having 98. During that period between there, we had some slight increases. So there would have been some fluctuations, in that 108 in 2018, then it dropped down to 89, and so it has fluctuated, but it has kept quite steadily close to the 98, you know, births, and on average, it would be just panning out to be about 100 births during that period of time between 2017 up to 2023. Now in St. Kitts, they're more, well, it's a bigger population, of course, and, you know, maybe a little more prolific than us. So they've had numbers like 554 births in 1 year. Yes, in 2017, they had 554 births. However, by 2023, births had fallen off considerably, down to 388. So you compare in 2017, 500 plus, and now in 2023, just 300 plus. It means that there's cause for concern. And so I join Dr. Ju in that there is need for some kind of intervention. All right? There's need for intervention. However, I don't know, and that is why I keep asking these people in charge to start studying our population, because we don't know why, what are the factors that affected the birth rate during that period of time? Because remember, we had the period to deal with when we had social distancing, you know, so if you were social distancing and you were not in the same family, and a lot of males, you know, who have children, don't necessarily have them in the same household. You know, the man live one place and the woman live someplace else, and so maybe social distancing had something to do with it. I'm just saying, maybe not. So we need to start examining these things, and so it could as well be that we've had economic hardships that have forced women to reconsider their participation in this breeding program, because that is essentially what it is. And so it is not something that happened in isolation. In order for us to address matters and address them efficiently and effectively, it means that we must know what the cause is, or else we're just shooting in the dark. So Dr. Ju, before you come with your proposal, make sure they are grounded in facts. Make sure that they're informed by the data. So if it is that it was only a period over the COVID time that we had a reduction in the thing, you need to know why. And like I was proposing, it might not even have an, it might not even be a factor really, but maybe social distancing. And so we work forward and say, well, it's not like we don't have all the elements in place to continue to replicate and do what we came here to do. But maybe it is just that the circumstances at the time, and maybe it doesn't really merit going into the house with information like that, because it just might just be a moot point. So that is the reason why I keep saying, let us be guided, let us be data driven. Or if the thing that we do, it can't be emotional. It can't be you look at something and say, oh, my boy, what happened? In 2017, you have 505, and in 2022, we're down to 399. 2022, it's a different year. Circumstances are different. So, Dr. Joe, please, when you come, make sure that you have data and you inform us as to why is it you're proposing, what you're proposing, and let's see if it's something that we can buy into. Because if you cannot convince people, if it is that it is economic hardship, you're going to have to make sure that the economy turns around first before you come tell people, well, I think you should have 2.1 children instead of 1.6, that the rate that we're currently going at. So please, no guesswork. Make sure that the measures that we put in place make sense. All right? Today when I was looking through as it relates to the birth rates and all that, and the reason why, like you have low fertility and all that, I was informed that in 2021, the European Parliament, they conducted a study, because normally they have what they call a research service. So, that is a part of the parliamentary apparatus. And so, they don't just bring bills, they make sure that they research it. So when they come and they speak with authority on whatever the matter is. And so they wanted to make a decision as it related to cell phone use or usage. And I think they were at the point that they were contemplating introducing 5G for cell phones. And so they did a study. And what this study came back to say, because almost every other authority that you looked at, people were saying things like, well, cell phone use does not affect people, your health or anything like that. But the study turned out to suggest that indeed these forces or these elements, these things could indeed cause a reduction in fertility in men. And so if you're using cell phone, they're suggesting now that you don't keep it in your pocket next to your genitals and or your private parts, sorry, to be more politically correct. And so these are things that...
Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice.
Steve, good night.
Hi, good night.
Good night, Honorable Janice Daniel and Miss Bartlett. Good night.
Good night, Jamdan.
This is ladies' time. Oh, yes. Don't care where the bad man come with tomorrow. This is ladies' time. And a warning, Miss Bartlett and Miss Daniel, we have work to do. Colin and Carly is doing a very good job to steer the ship, because I see success. I see success in the making. This is ladies' time. We're going to get the read all the vagabond. And Mrs. Daniel, do not leave secession out in individual mind. Preach secession, because we are seeing clearly from the days of Robert Bradshaw that they don't care. They don't care about the little that over there. And I will defend my father's land. Fairness, that is where we want. If the vagabond man want fairness for division, I jam down want fairness for division. And he must come under Timothy Harris when he return. It must come, because Janice, Jody, and Patricia Bartlett will be there. I know they will be there in the federal parliament, because they're hearing the cry. According to the great Ayatollah, the writing is on the wall. We don't hear the cry in Bastille. If they think that we're going to sit down and ball the lie, Mrs. Bartlett and Miss Daniel, we're on the way to victory. But we have to work. Look at the national this, what do you call it there? National security. Look at the kind of immigrants just walking in Zinkets. They use the plane. Because they feel they could TV election again and they ain't gonna work, It's not gonna work. Have a good night, Steve.
Aye.
And Miss Bartlett.
You too. Thank you.
Julie and her husband in St. Croix. That's my first cousin. Two brothers' children.
Okay.
Julie, your good friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's my cousin. Good night, Julie. This is Jam Dong. I ain't gonna Davis. They ain't gonna get away with them vagabond behavior no more. Especially the dirty boy over there. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah.
And we will rally them to the ground. We will rally them. This is women time. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yes. So yeah. So like I said, he must get the data. But the thing is, though, I think Dr. Jew was trying to make the case at some point, and I think the premier over here also, that our population is not as big as they think that it could be. Nobody could tell you what is the ideal, what is the ideal population that we ought to have, what the ideal number is. But what we need to, though, recognize is that when Dr. Jew is saying that he's going to implement or at least propose something for the birth rate, by the same token, he has to understand if you're going to have an equation, you have balance on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is that your live birth rate is going down, you have to look, and you're looking at about stability in your population, you have to also look at the death rate. So what we have is that the live births are going down, but the death rate is going up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have to pay attention to making sure that we have an intervention for both. You can't just do one and not the next. Then it's like, why are you prioritizing people getting children, but you're not prioritizing making sure that people don't die earlier than they ought to? And a lot of us, and I've seen it within recent times, a lot of deaths, people are saying, oh, it's untimely, because we are not expecting most of our population to go before they get that 10. And a lot of people within recent times, a lot of the funerals that have been occurring around here, people are not making it to 10. And so we have to look at the death rate. We must do something so that we can solve the equation. So we have to, if we do something on one side, we have to do something on the other side. So we have two serious issues to attend to. And like I said, we need to study both. The cause of the low birth and the cause of the deaths. Because this thing is very unsettling for me, not knowing why is it we have so many cancer cases. Maybe it isn't, and I don't want to speculate and say, what it is, because like I said, we get in trouble when we do that. A lot of people are thinking that 5G would be it, and that is what is going to cause the cancer, but we don't know. And so we have a population, and we can invite people to study our population because it's small enough, and our turnover rate seems to be high enough too, because we are checking out earlier. And so I think that our population would be an ideal population to invite some study group, some research group to come in and help us out as it relates to that. And so the population continues to be an issue on both sides, just because I think they're trying to solve the debt situation. And so they seem to think that if you increase the number of people here, then somehow you'll have more people in the economy would be bigger without introducing a logical framework for economic development that really is the foundation for sustaining any population. Because if we look at Haiti, and I know that it has been in the news in recent times, and not so glowing a report based on comments that we would have made, or we are responsible for having made at our PM level. They have 13 million people, and it's not like they don't have people, but the economy is bad. You have to fix the fundamentals.
Good evening, caller. Wayne, please.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Manners and to Ms. Bartlett.
Good evening.
Let me ask you a question. How if you sell 60,000 passports, what do people be? So how could the population going down when you sell passport and I say them a citizen? What's the truth?
I think they're thinking of productive citizens. The CBI people who you speak about, we have heard our political leaders say on many occasions, some of them have never been to St. Kitts and Nevis. They're bought into that for a specific purpose. But are they being productive within the Vision and Kittitian society?
Well, I think it probably goes, sorry, go ahead, caller.
Yeah, but that is the same problem that the American administration is having. Why are you having people being citizens and not productive citizens? Why you sell your passport to somebody who never come to the country? Does that make any sense to a foolish person? Go ahead, Miss Bartlett, I listen to you.
Okay, well, when we're doing population census, it's something different. We're talking about people who are residents. So when I reference population, we're talking about people who actually live here, the residents who live here. Because if we were to include the population of all the persons who were born here and maybe migrated, then it would be an awfully, large number, considering. But I don't think that we take the economic citizens into consideration. We're talking about, because when we do a census, when we go down, we do head count. That is what it is. In 2011, we did a census and we had 47,000 plus people. And in 2021, we went around and we counted the number of persons here again, and we got a population of 51,000, meaning that those are the persons we are making reference to, who are going to sustain, who participate in the economy, and those are the persons who we make reference to, and not the persons who just bought a passport or may have gotten a passport because of birth or whatever other circumstance that would entitle one to hold a St. Kitts Nevis passport.
That is one of the concerns that citizens who have spoken to have in Nevis, because what they're saying is that these citizens who buy passport has all the rights as a citizen as we here. But you're saying they're not contributing as we here, so then that is not a balanced thing. This thing needs to be relooked at, this citizenship by investment. We can't have people being a citizen, being able to come by the whole of Nevis. And that's the only contribution, because they have money, then could buy as much land as possible, because they have all the rights and privileges, like me and you.
Of course.
So how does that make it fair?
It's not fair.
These are the questions that people are having.
It's not fair, but guess what? It was for us. That is what has, I think, floated our boat for a while. That is what has kept this economy going. The CBI, money is coming in from the CBI were monies that we had been dependent on for years. And it has come into, close scrutiny within recent times, and we're talking about two different issues though. But yeah. You're right that it is not fair that they have all the rights and privileges if they're not contributing on the same basis, but the same argument can be made of people who are different categories of persons who are themselves citizens, whether by birth or marriage or whatever, and they don't live here and they don't contribute. I'm not saying that some don't, just saying all with passports don't necessarily contribute.
Yeah, because have you been looking at the situation of Canada? Because one of the things they are saying in Canada is that people are misusing this thing, because what it does, they use the citizenship and then go in and ask for immunity. And this is one of the reports been coming out of Canada, that people who are getting citizenship are using these things and going into countries and saying that they can't go back to their countries of birth, because they have been, oppressed. And that is one of the things that Canada has been talking about, looking at cracking down on their borders. So that is why I'm saying that it doesn't make sense. You have a citizen of St. Kitts Nevis living in Canada for the rest of their life and not, So what's the whole thing? Is just about a money thing?
Well, for some people it is. For some, that's why I call it economic citizenship. It is just about the money. And then, like I said,
look at ourselves. This is not good enough for our people. This might be good for the country, but not for the people.
I hear you.
Because the people is not really benefiting. You're a citizen. You ain't paying, like I hear a gentleman saying, he ain't living in a house for 10 years. But then he wants to get disconnected because he ain't paying garbage, but he ain't live there. This is what I said. People are in need here, just like you were saying that. One of the things I'm noticing too is many ladies only getting one child. because of the economic situation. But the premier would look at them and say, well, they have a car. And so they're rich. So we have a kind of, untangling situation here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Pat, as I've listened to the discussion, going through my head, why is this a pressing issue at this time for the Prime Minister? We know that our economy has slowed since 2023. Our economic engines are not exactly turning over.
You need oiling.
It need oiling. But I know you have spoken extensively. You've been let's get back to that in a minute. Okay, caller, you're on.
Need oiling.
Turn your radio down, caller.
Please.
Caller, please turn down your device and talk to us. Yes, you're on.
Turned it off.
Good.
Thank you.
Hey, yeah.
Yes, go right ahead, please.
A question. What is the reason for the call for people having more babies? As you understand it.
The reason for the call?
Yes.
Well, that has not been, I don't know if it has been revealed. I suspect maybe it is coming.
Well, that is the point I was getting at. What do you think is the motivation for the Prime Minister's call? You've been an advocate for reform with Social Security. He has promised they're getting to that. Is it that the numbers will help the Social Security be more sustainable?
That definitely is on the front burner.
If that is the reason, if that is the reason, it's going to be a little while.
It's a long-term thing.
It's going to be a little while. Yeah. Okay. This is not the first time I have heard the call. The Premier made that call some time ago.
But that one was because he wanted money, people to help him pay for the debt.
I was very offended by it. If I had a daughter and anybody asked them to go get babysat, they could get money. I would take a real harsh look at that. The Premier seems to be thinking that is a way out. The Premier himself has said the economy has failed. And that is exactly what the Prime Minister is saying as well. I am saying that the problem is not having babies or population or anything like that. I have always thought that the population is commensurate with the amount of taxes that you collect. The more population you get, is not more money you're going to collect. It's all relative. You might collect more money, but you're putting more strain on the system. That money going to happen. If it can't happen now, it's not going to happen then. My observation is that no matter how much money these leaders get, their first order of service, their first order of importance, priority, is to line the pocket. And I have no apologies for that. This is the reason why. The minute the last Labour administration got into power, Drew and his ministers raised their salary. Shortly after that, the Premier and his ministers are saying, every time you apply to them, they say, we ain't got no money. Mr. Premier, could you look at this? This needs doing. We ain't got no money. Mr. Public Works Minister, could you look at this? We ain't got no money. I remember talking to the Public Works Minister about the road going out to the south. For 5 years, it was inaccessible. The road was blocked off. First thing happened is that it got washed out. And I could tell you truckers went over there trying to get to Williams Quarry. to dump stuff, and they couldn't go any further, and they start dumping this stuff right there by the gut. So that whole area was blocked off. Came to the point where, after pleading with the minister, and he said they ain't got no money to even clear the road, I decided I'm not going to pay any taxes over there. And I told them why. And they went. A week later, they came back and told me, the officer came back and told me they went over there. I said, in what? They said, in a pickup truck. I said, okay, I'm going to go check it. And the gut that was blocked off with cubic yards of green waste has been moved, and the area has been graded, and it's been passable since. And I could tell you because I have reason to be going in that area. And I have been. Getting back to the spending of money. The unity, back as far as the unity, well, even before, the CBI has been the cash cow for the country. And from all reports, it has been doing well. But it has not been used for the country. In the unity construct, one minister knew what was in that kitty. No matter how they asked, the response was, what you want to know that for? And at the end of the day, when unity left office, the infrastructure in St. Kitts until today has been in a mess. Fortunately, ours is in a little better condition, and they've been getting the lion's share of the CBI money. Where was it spent? When they stay over there asking what they do with 500 million, what they do with what the 800 million that should have come to Nevis and didn't come. Because the infrastructure and the economy over there is no better than the economy in Nevis. At least we see some sort of a reason, or some sort of a way that the money was spent, even though it was not all spent there. Fast forward to this.
Oh, you've got to be quick. You've got to be nimble here, caller.
Okay, yeah. Fast forward to the project that the Premier is trying to sell to us. I asked the Premier, how is it? I mean, he said in his press conference that everybody who go into that zone gonna have to pay the CBI money. I asked him, that goes into the federal coffers. Since only the Prime Minister know how much in there, how are you going to know what's for you and how you're going to get it? He told me that every month they get an update. And I thought, we should have been informed. The people should have been informed. How come I have to go behind the back door to get that information? And this is where they're failing.
Okay, caller.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got to leave it there. We've got to leave it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
If needs be, I'll call back.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. So we were discussing the birth rate and the
I was asking
the population
and motivation for
right.
Because as the caller rolled it out, and as you said, this is a long-term thing. This is not a fix that's going to happen tomorrow. But is it the thinking that will address some of the concerns about the sustainability of Social Security?
It probably might be from the macroeconomic sense of, but as it relates to the Nevis Island administration, though, and their press, it might be for a different reason, you know. And so I just wanted, though, to underscore the point by saying that population has been increasing. It's not as if the population has been decreasing. Even though we have an alarming increase in the death rate, we still have, and we would have added from 2017 up to 2023, we would have added 1,179 to the citizens, well, the residents and the citizens of St. Kitts Nevis, the persons who were born here, citizens by right of being by birth. So we would have had 1,179, persons added to the population. And between the 2011 census and the 2021 census, we had an increase of 4,125. So it is not fair to think, or based on what they're saying, as if nothing is happening, the population is decreasing. Population is not necessarily decreasing, but the population is getting older. We are getting older. When you count all of the persons who live here, you add up all the ages, and then you divide them and all that, you come up with a mean, and all. It suggests that we are getting older as a population as a whole. And so the concern is expressed in the 14th actuarial report. You realize it was out? You realize it was out? I realized that there wasn't any song and dance. It was just put there since November. I think it was late November 2025. We've been asking for the Social Security actuarial report, which was done since 2023. And all these years have passed, and in the end of November, when everybody thinking about carnival and all the rest of it, it was just put there on the site. There wasn't any fanfare. I don't know if any reference was made to it in the parliament. Was there?
Not
because
that
you would have, but something like that we have been clamoring for this information, and it was just put there, and it's just by chance I was browsing through and I happened to find it. And so let us just take this straight into the Social Security and what it means, because I read the report, and what it is suggesting.
Caller's gone away.
Yes, so the Social Security actuarial report, the 14th actuarial report, which, like I said, was up until 2023, came out finally. After holding it back for 2 years, it is finally out. And so there wasn't any fanfare, like I said. It wasn't anything that, it seemed like it was just under the radar. But the document says on the Social Security site, it says confidential. So it does. It says confidential. So every page you turn over, you see confidential at the bottom. And I was like, what is the relevance of this? I'd never seen it presented in that format before, to suggest that it is a confidential document that has found its way onto the Social Security website. But notwithstanding, it is there, and I'm asking our people and urging us to go to the Social Security webpage, and then you'll go to this part that says actuarial review, and they have all of them there, chronological order. You can get from the first one in 1977 was when Social Security, I think, was introduced, 1977.
Or 78, somewhere around there.
1977, I think. But anyway, or the act was around 1977. Anyway, from that time, every 3 years, they have to review to look at the risks that this that risk pose to the Social Security scheme, and they give a report back as to if they think that this is something that is going to be sustainable, so that you and I, when we get old, we could get a little pension, we could get a little Social Security, and could live a decent enough life. However, that is being threatened. And I think the last time we had a conversation about Social Security, I would have pointed out to us that at that time they said that the fund would probably go bust or go broke by 2030. Anyway, I think it was 2038. It was 2038 in that actual review that we discussed then. And so now we have the updated one, and what it is saying now is that the fund will be depleted, meaning it going broke, and they give us an extra 2 years. So it's not now 2038, but by 2040, which is in 14 years' time. I don't know. This is not welcome information that people would want to hear. But what we need to understand is that the blame is blame that could go all around. Because as it stands, or as we speak, every other country in the OECS has made, or they have made, the necessary reforms so that the Social Security fund could be extended and reach to the state where they could say that it is a sustainable fund. Mind you, most social security schemes are going to run into that issue at some point in time, in that if they don't reform, then they might go broke, and so you make the necessary reform as is recommended.
Let's take this caller. Caller, we want it to be quick. We have some ground to cover.
Very, very, very quick. Good night, Miss Bartlett. Good night, Mr. Manod.
Good night.
Good night.
Speaking of social security, how much hundreds of millions of dollars does the NIA owe to social security? How much hundreds of millions of dollars does the administration and St. Kitts owe to social security? We're speaking about longevity. How much hundreds of acres of our land, or thousands of acres of our land, was put up as surety for the administration and St. Kitts to get the hundreds of millions of dollars to borrow from social security that they have not yet paid back to social security, and them said land we can't plant on them. Nice.
Good night. Thank you. That was short and to the point.
It was to the point, and he outlined some critical elements there as it relates to the Social Security Fund, how it is being managed, and the investments that they have made. And mind you, what he spoke to, those are some legitimate investments that have been made, in that if you lend your money out, you expect it back. And
good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice.
Yes, we're gonna go be quick too. Mr. Bartlett.
what's that?
Let me say good night to Dr. Janice, but I'm not gonna say tell happy new year until she come that we can say face to face. And anything get happy new year too. And let me shout up Ron, because it seems like I will continue forget Ron. Ron! Saying to the Social Security, and that it is to come up with where the job creation. If the job not if you create the job them, you can hold people and them. Let me say that the death. So now the old people and left the office and the young people and sit in. How much you go pay out and how much you go in? So if you bring in one of the million babies and you don't get the job. Now them from the system now that somebody now have to provide them. And if somebody provides with an like social service, then can't send a social security over that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So at the job that you have to create. Okay then.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. It's 17 minutes to 10, and we have already decided we are not doing any overtime. So let me introduce the last topic. And I know
but we have to finish the social security.
No.
We're not going to get to the other one. We're going to leave that for somebody else to cover.
You sure?
I'm sure. I'm
Okay,
pretty sure.
all right, go right ahead. I know you're skillful enough to weave it into the discussion.
No, but I just want we can't gloss over this one, because it is, like I said, I was trying to make the point that the successive governments have not addressed this issue as it relates to the reforms that have been repeatedly recommended to them that they should. And I was saying that we're the only ones in the OECS who have not yet done any reforms to make sure that the thing is, So the urgency, urgency is no, because in this report that has been hidden from us, and I have to use that word hidden, because for years, 3 years, from since 2023, until now, we should have seen this. We should have been prepared for it. We should have had discussions on it. And so now at the last minute, I'm seeing things inside of the actuarial report or review that is saying to us that this is the time that we must do it now, the urgency. And this is not just some kind of, feel-good kind of thing to say, Social Security is strong because we have $1.7 billion in the fund and all that. No, that cannot suffice. That cannot be an explanation for why we have dragged our feet up to this point. Because what has been pointed out in the 14th actuarial review, which we have just only now getting after 2 years of hiding it, is that these reforms must be done now. And these are reforms that are likely to hurt in an economy that is already bad. And we're hearing now that if it is that we do not reform now, then the pensionable age, mind you, when we did the one before, in the 13th actuarial review, they were saying, recommending that the pensionable age be moved from 62 to 65. Now, they're saying in this one that it should move from 62 to 66. So you see the goalposts start moving further and further as it relates to how painful these reforms are getting. And nobody have the political will because they think that it's going to affect their electability if it is that they introduce things that at the end of the day would only benefit us. But for them, the short-term gain is enough for these politicians to be playing with the lives of our people, because the economy is getting bad, and now you're hearing that the contribution rate, the last time they told us in 2020 that the contribution rate should move from 11% to 13%, meaning that the people who was contributing every week from your wages or every month from your salaries, when they used to just take out the 5% and then your employer, they match it with 5% and plus the 1% for whatever that was. The thing is now, they're proposing not 13% now in this one. Now they're proposing that it could be as much as 17%. And for this fund to be sustainable, that 17% increase of what they're taking out of your money, that must happen by 2027. 2027 is just over the year. It's next year we're talking about. And people are not even understanding because they didn't know that this was upon us. And now, 3 years has elapsed already, because at the end of this year, another actuarial review is due. So it means that things could be even worse. What we have learned from this report is that as it relates to the health of this scheme, as it relates to the health of this scheme, is that if all of these things don't come together by 2040 or before, because it depends on how heavy we have to spend this year, it depends on how much Social Security is getting on their investments, because we're at the point now where the contributions that they're taking from the people who are working, they cannot pay for the benefits that they're paying to the people who are getting pension or any other sickness benefit or any other benefit. What they've been able to do is to supplement that, the contributions that they're getting, with monies that they're getting from the investments that they've made. And some of us query, why is it government is borrowing this and that from what is how the thing set up? The thing set up, it really ought to be reformed so that we could invest more of the Social Security Fund outside of the Federation. Instead of that, for reasons known to politicians, and they would not disclose to the ordinary person, they've kept most of it, 90-something% of it, here between us. And so they've been lending out to most statutory bodies or most government entities. Those are the ones they're lending out to. And then when they run into trouble, sometimes they don't pay, like the NIA, they don't pay.
Caller, welcome. Be quick.
Well, you don't be quick. We know why they keep the money. Nobody go ask why they keep the money, you know. We know why they keep the money. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
So we are likely to run into problems sooner rather than later. Even the projections that have been made, I don't even know we're going to make it to 2040 if we don't do these reforms. Because the investments, most of the investments are done in St. Kitts and Nevis. Most of the money is in St. Kitts and Nevis National Bank. They lend money to the corporation over here.
Caller, be quick.
Still quick. Miss Shiz, that is very, very important, that Social Security. And I was speaking to Win FM this morning, and they told me that they asked a representative from the NRP to come for interview. I don't run from these things. Only I bringing leadership to the federation. One eye you gotta come. One eye you gotta bite the bullet and come. People want to know these things. You hear me explaining the social security thing? I just had about 3 calls from some old men. Fighting. This is people bread and butter. And we got some vagabonds that is head of state and any who come into the country with these kind of things. Have a good night, Steve.
Thank
you
you.
got a handful with me.
Yep.
Then backing down.
Pat,
Ladies' time is now.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Pat, I would think the Win FM knows the way to the NRP.
Well, I'm not even going to. I'm not going to respond to that. You know, I have not heard that coming from them. Not that I'm challenging the veracity of the story, but as it is now, I am not going to respond to that because I'm not aware of any, offer to be on Win FM for that we have not taken advantage of because we have to pay to come here. So why wouldn't we take something if it's free? Anyway, that is besides the point. And I'm not sharing this information to scare anybody. It's just so that we need to be aware. Because like I said, I like discussions where all of us are aware of the facts and we can discuss accordingly. We don't need to get emotional about things. We need to know everything and plan accordingly. Because these guys, and he described them as vagabonds, I am beyond that at this point. I stop calling them vagabonds. I just leave them there. But at some point, we need to fix it. And I like I was making the point, the expenditure as it is now, like you're doing for that they're expending monies for administration and for benefits, that is not enough. Well, the money that they're taking in from contribution, not enough to cover that activity, to pay for the administration of the fund and to pay for the benefits. And so it means that we have been using monies from those investments that they've made, particularly those that are overseas, those have higher returns on the money, those that are outside. The difficulty with that is that they have limited the amount of money that they can invest outside, and the law must provide for them to increase the limit to make sure that you get a higher return outside. But for some reason, the money sits here in the National Bank because of that is a statutory corporation. At least it's treated the same way because government has the highest shares in that one. And so the money is not growing the way that we would like, even though we do get a fair penny on it. However, it's going to get to a point where if we do not institute these reforms, even the monies that are coming in from those investments not going to be enough. And so we're going to have to start to break the CDs, those what they call the short-term and the medium-term assets. They're going to have to start liquefying them, meaning that they're liquidating them, to meet these expenses, meaning that you're going to have to turn them into cash. So if you have land, Social Security have land, they're going to have to make sure that they push to sell lands or whatever after the CDs would have been depleted, because you have monies in different places, and cash deposits, those they have break those first. And I understand that we have done that already in 2024. And so the actuary was saying now, if you have no reforms by 2024, and I'm telling you that there have not been any reforms in 2024, and having made that statement, they said thereafter the assets will have to be liquidated. And that is what we are seeing now. We're hearing that they're breaking CDs here and there to pay. And so when you hear Dr. Ju say they had to show up, Social Security, that is the point it would be if all the money finished in 2040. If all the money finished in 2040 or before, the fund can only continue if you increase the contribution that people are making. So if you think that in 2027 you're paying 17% to make sure that this fund thing, it is more logical to conclude that beyond 2027, if there are no reforms, you're going to be paying 30%. And it keeps going up because it means that the fund is being depleted. We have to be careful, though, in that we don't want to suggest that investments ought not to happen here, and that NIA shouldn't be able to borrow some money to do projects, or the St. Kitts government shouldn't be able to do that, because I've heard a lot of people saying, stop lending money, but that is how you get a return on the money. You can't just put everything in the bank and expect that the bank will give you 2% and that could take care of business. That's why you have to lend out money. The difficulty we have is that when you have institutions like the NIA, well, it's not an institution, but the government of Nevis, the NIA, once you have an administration that is not, don't think that they should honor their commitments. If they take money from the contributions from the workers, whether their salaries or wages, they are to pay them to Social Security. Those monies are needed. And so you cannot be in arrears. How much they're in arrears, I don't know, but it is not the responsible thing for the NIA to do by not submitting the monies that they withdraw or collect from the contributions of the workers. You put in extra pressure on the system. Likewise, if they have loans, I understand that because the building that Social Security is in here in Nevis, you know that NIA occupy a part of it. And so at some point we understand that they have not been paying the rent. No, you have to pay the rent. That is a part of the... Go ahead.
We've got 4 minutes, I think, because I have something else. I think we should close down on the calls, you think? Or take this one? All right, last call for the evening, 30 seconds.
So tell me something. The NIA steal the workers their money then? Aye.
Well, we don't know the status of that. We just know that there was a letter that was circulating that they would have been in arrears because they were taking the monies and not paying them in, and we don't know if that has been rectified. We have not seen, because I didn't get a chance, after I saw the actual report, I didn't get a chance to go and check to see if the financials for Social Security would have been published and to see what the status is as it relates to those people who owe. But I don't think we got information as granular as that to suggest that it would have been NIA, you know, there's all the debtors, all the creditors lumped into different categories and not necessarily at that level. I don't think we'll be able to see that. And so we only have it's all we'll save the rest for this.
Yeah, but let me say this. It's 3.5 minutes to 10. And I know you say you're presenting this for education, elucidation, clarity of the public. But what is your message to the Prime Minister, who I think is responsible for Social Security? And I know he listens to you. Should he spring into action, since we have an outer limit of 2027, and we know inside 2026 there's likely to be an election, and so politicians are likely to duck away without bringing the reality to the people?
I want him not to listen to me.
No?
I'm not an expert on this. I kind of have a fair understanding, but what I would like to do is to point him to something that I captioned in the report, and it came from the actuary, and it says, the time to act is now, N-O-W. Not next year, not the year after, because like I said, the pain is going to be greater the further down the road you kick the can. And I've said that before, and every time we talk about Social Security, some people don't understand, and they're like, well, you know, nobody must touch my Social Security and all the rest of it. At one point, it's not going to be anything to touch. And so and you know that it is not a year that is very favorable to the current government, so it is likely, I'm just putting us on guard, it is likely because we're in an election cycle, and there's no doubt about that, based on what we've seen on the ground, it is not likely that they're going to introduce the reforms. And that is unfortunate. It is not likely. I've said to Dr. G before, at least I think 2 years ago, I would have said, let us deal with it. Let's deal with it now. Let's explain to people, because I'm thinking that most of us who are even close to pensionable age and thinking about that would have been brought up in a time when your grandmother would say to you, eat little and live long. So it means that if you had to make the sacrifice in the front, you wouldn't come back later to make it in the back. And that is what is biting us now. We never made the reforms. Since 10, 20, almost 30 years ago, these reforms have been recommended, and we have not been minded to listen to the experts who have presented them. And so that is why we're at this crisis point. It is a crisis point. And if we don't heed, things can just get worse. And at some point, you're going to hear, if in order for us to continue Social Security, government can either have to put in money into it, or we're going to have to increase the contribution that the people who are working are making, and instead of paying 10% or 11%, you might then be paying 30% just to run it as a pay-as-you-go kind of scheme. And so it is something that is very concerning. This is something that needs almost a public address, because it is that level of crisis, I think. And maybe I'm only saying that because I know of other things. But people ought to be aware that it is an issue that is going to run us into some problems, because when you hear on the front end that Social Security has $1.7 billion in reserve, it means that all the lands that the gentleman, when he called, had made reference to, those lands are involved in the assets. All the loans that the government would have taken, those are involved as well. And so we're at a point now where if government is broke, it's not likely that government would be able to continue the program, the fund, by putting in monies in the absence of the investment portfolio and all the rest of it. We always leave these things out last. I think maybe we should say that first, and then afterwards, if you get time, we do the greetings at the end.
Yeah, never enough time. People have been saying we need to put it up to 2 hours. They enjoy it so much. Anyway, it's 5 seconds after 10 o'clock, and Dr. Bartlett had proposed that we speak about death, crisis, and destiny. We'll put that for the second Monday in February when she will be back.
No.
No?
Remember, I said when I came, and maybe I did not make that clear. When I came, I said a deputy was essential, and what I did was I switched with my leader, and so
she'll have your
she
turn.
should have been here tonight, but of course she had the cobweb then to brush down, right? Because she'd been away for a while.
Okay, all right.
And so we allowed her some time to sit down, relax, and have a glass of wine, and recover and all that. And so she'll be taking my spot in 2 weeks' time.
Okay, now I understand.
So she would be
that.
here, right?
Okay, that's an understanding. But in the meantime, the Premier of Nevis has been in the garden hiding in the United States, hiding in Barcelona, Spain. He comes with his first press conference tomorrow. Maybe he will address the debt crisis and destiny.
Never.
We've been waiting for some information for the whole of January. And now that we're at the end, maybe we'll hear something from the Premier of Nevis tomorrow at 10. Good night. Make sure you join us next week when we'll be in the month of February, and J.D. Keynes will be first up. Good night.
Your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
Please allow 2020 Vision Radio this brief interruption for the following.
It is with deep regret that we announce the passing